Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine someone who was a philosopher, a scientist, a prophet.
And even some would say a bit of a charlatan.
Exactly. All rolled into one. Someone claiming, to be an immortal god walking the earth,
Hmm.
but also doing actual, groundbreaking scientific experiments. It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel, doesn't it?
It really does. But that's who we're diving into today, Empedocles.
His story is just one of the most intriguing, paradoxical tales in all of ancient thought. Really challenges how we normally categorize genius.
Yeah, and it's captivating because his, let's say, multifaceted nature isn't just a strange detail. It's actually central to understanding, well, the foundations of Western thought and
Uh-huh.
also that tension, between early science, philosophy, and spiritual belief back then.
Mm.
The sources we've pulled together for this deep dive, they give us a really rich picture of this enigmatic figure, someone who just defied easy labels even in his own time.
So our mission today is basically to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge, the key insights from these sources.
Hmm.
We want to reveal the layers of Empedocles' pretty complex mind.
And show how his ideas still echo, surprisingly, even now.
Yeah, we're going to take a trip back to ancient Sicily, explore his life, which was remarkable in itself,
Definitely.
his genuinely groundbreaking science, his really unique cosmology, and that deeply personal spiritual journey he was on.
It's a quest for purification, for divinity, woven through everything else.
Exactly. So get ready for a deep exploration of a mind that was spanning disciplines centuries before we even really had those neat boxes.
Should be fascinating.
So let's start with the man himself. A legend, really, in his own time and still today. Empedocles was, well, unique. A blend of roles you'd struggle to imagine fitting together now.
Mm-hmm.
Our sources literally describe him as a mixture of philosopher, prophet, man of science, and charlatan.
Quite the CV.
Right. He was active around 440 BC in Acragas, that's modern Agrigento, a really vibrant but often quite turbulent city in Sicily.
And it's interesting, his timing. He's younger than Parmenides.
The guy who said change is an illusion, right?
Yeah.
Reality is just one unchanging thing.
Exactly. But Empedocles, despite being Parmenides' contemporary, also seems to have this intellectual kinship with Heraclitus.
Who said the exact opposite.
Yeah.
All is flux, changes everything.
Right. So you have this built-in tension right there between the static view and the dynamic view. And that's really key to understanding how Empedocles tried to synthesize things later.
It's just hard to picture someone juggling all those identities today, isn't it? In
Yeah.
our world where everything's so specialized.
It is. And that word charlatan, we really need to unpack that.
Yeah, and what's that about? Was it just his critics being dismissive?
Maybe partly.
Yeah.
Or was it actually part of his public persona? Maybe even deliberate,
Huh.
like an act.
Sort of. You have to
Hmm.
remember, in ancient Greece, the lines between knowledge, belief, performance, even magic,
Hmm.
they were much blurrier than they are for us.
So someone like Empedocles, who could demonstrate amazing insights, maybe predicting weather, maybe doing medical stuff that seemed miraculous,
Yeah.
he could easily be seen as both a profound sage and, to some people, maybe a trickster, an illusionist.
I see. So the labels weren't necessarily contradictory back then.
Exactly. They highlight how tangled up knowledge and belief were. A brilliant mind back then might present itself in ways that just maximized its impact, whether that was through philosophy or prophecy
Or what we'd call science.
right, scientific demonstrations that looked like magic to most people. So this fusion of roles, it wasn't necessarily a contradiction to him or his audience. It could have been a kind of holistic expression of his wisdom.
And he wasn't just thinking deep thoughts in isolation either. He was right in the thick of it, politically.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Sources say he was a committed democratic politician in Acragas. And Acragas, Sicily generally, it was a real political hotspot.
A pressure cooker. Constant struggle between democracy, or early forms of it, and tyranny.
And Empedocles was right in the middle. Apparently, the leaders of the Democratic Party he'd supported were eventually executed or exiled.
Rough times.
Yeah. And he himself ended up exiled eventually. There were even hints, though we can't be sure, that maybe he was executed later on.
Wow.
And his involvement went beyond local politics, too. He apparently tried to negotiate with major external enemies of the Greeks, like Persia and Carthage.
Which shows a real commitment to practical governing, doesn't it? Not just theory.
Absolutely. He
Yeah.
wasn't just contemplating the cosmos. He was trying to shape human society.
And putting that in the bigger picture, his political life wasn't just, personal drama. It really mirrored the whole turbulent scene in Sicily and the Greek world at large.
Mhm.
His willingness to jump into the political fray, even risking his life, it suggests a mind that felt a deep civic duty, applying wisdom to make society better.
It adds another layer, doesn't it?
Yeah.
This practical dimension.
Definitely. The commitment to democratic ideals, navigating complex foreign relations, it just makes his character even richer. His thinking and his actions were totally intertwined.
Okay, now this is where Empedocles really takes a turn into the extraordinary, maybe even the bizarre.
The legends.
Oh yeah, the legends surrounding him are just wild. They blur the lines between profound insight and pure fantasy.
He was seen as a miracle worker, right?
Totally. Probably using his scientific knowledge in ways people just couldn't comprehend, so it looks supernatural. We hear these incredible stories. He could control the winds. He brought a woman back to life after she seemed dead for 30 days. He could even raise the dead. Or so they said.
Big claims.
Huge. But maybe the most audacious thing, the thing that really cements his myth, was him claiming to be a god.
Yeah, that's pretty bold.
He apparently declared, and this is a quote from ancient sources, "I am among you an immortal god, no mortal now, honored among all as I meet, crowned with fillets and flowery garlands."
Wow. Just comes right out and says it.
No messing around. And then there's that famous story, probably not true, but very dramatic.
Mount Etna.
Yep. Him leaping into the volcano. Supposedly to prove he was immortal. Matthew Arnold wrote that poem, great Empedocles, that ardent soul leapt into Etna and was roasted whole.
Haha, memorable line.
It is. But it's just, how do you square that image with the meticulous scientific observer? It really pushes our definition of philosopher.
It does, and it makes you ask, right, was this self-proclaimed godhood genuinely believed by everyone? Or was it a performance, a strategy?
What do you mean, a strategy?
Well, think about the power of persona back then. Blending early science, which looked like magic, with spiritual authority. How else do you get people to accept these extraordinary abilities? It's very likely his advanced knowledge, way beyond what most people understood, just looked like supernatural power.
So predicting weather, healing people.
Exactly. It would seem like divine intervention if you didn't have a scientific framework. So him saying, "I'm a god," might have been less about delusion, more about legitimizing his insights.
Making them more acceptable or awe-inspiring.
Yeah, and maybe even giving him more political clout. In a society where wisdom and divinity were often seen as linked, it's this really complex mix, rational, performative, mystical.
And yet, amidst all the myth and the maybe performance, he was still a serious thinker, a writer.
Absolutely. That's crucial.
Our sources mention his two main works, philosophical poems, On Nature, sometimes called On Natural Science, and Purifications. Only fragments survive now, sadly, but they're our main window into his philosophy.
And the fact that he wrote in poetry is really telling, isn't it?
Yeah, why poetry for complex ideas about cosmology, physics, biology, spirituality?
Well, he was following a tradition. Parmenides wrote in verse 2, and Empedocles influenced later philosophical poets like Lucretius in Rome.
Okay.
And even if some ancient critics debated his, quote, poetic merit, the form itself was powerful. It let him weave together complex science, grand philosophy, personal spiritual stuff, all into one narrative.
More engaging than just dry prose.
Definitely. And think about how knowledge spread back then. Oral tradition, public readings, memory aids. Poetry was a fantastic vehicle for making these deep, multifaceted ideas accessible, memorable, impactful.
So he was a communicator too, not just a thinker.
Exactly. He understood the power of story, rhythm.
Okay, let's shift gears now. Moving from the man, the myth, to his actual contributions. Empedocles, the scientist.
Right. This is where things get really interesting from a modern perspective.
Because he made some genuinely groundbreaking observations, laid groundwork for future science, and probably his biggest claim to fame, scientifically.
Air.
Air. He seems to have been the first to actually prove that air was a separate physical substance.
Which sounds obvious now, but was revolutionary then.
Totally. And he didn't just guess, he demonstrated it with that experiment using the brazen clock.
Which was basically a type of water lifter or bucket, right? With a tube.
Yeah, he showed that if you push it mouth down into water, the water doesn't rush in.
Unless you let the air out through the tube.
Exactly. Proving that air takes up space. It's a thing, not just emptiness, not a void like some philosophers thought.
He even described it really vividly, didn't he? The girl playing with the water clock.
Oh yeah, the quote is great. When a girl, playing with a water clock of shining brass, puts the orifice of the pipe upon her comely hand and dips the water clock into the yielding mass of silvery water, the stream does not then flow into the vessel, but the bulk of the air inside, pressing upon the close-packed perforations, keeps it out till she uncovers the compressed stream, but then air escapes and an equal volume of water runs in.
It's such a detailed, methodical description. It's practically a lab report.
It really is. Proto-experimental science.
And that description just highlights his whole approach. It wasn't just abstract thinking, it was observation-based, using simple tools to show a fundamental principle.
He fundamentally challenged ideas about the void, empty space.
Especially for followers of Parmenides, yeah. And it laid groundwork for understanding atmospheric pressure later on, influenced Aristotle, maybe even foreshadowed things like the barometer eventually.
It's a massive insight for developing physics.
Yeah.
Just understanding the physical world.
Genuinely proto-science, a mind observing, testing, explaining.
And he didn't just stop with air as a substance. He applied that idea to biology, too.
The holistic view again.
Right. He used the same brazen clock analogy to explain breathing, respiration, the air going in and out, which is a remarkably early grasp of that mechanism. And he wasn't just about air. He seemed to get centrifugal force, too.
The water in the cup example.
Yeah. Water in a cup on a string, it stays in even when upside down. These were really insightful observations applying physics across different scales.
And putting those in context, they were huge leaps for that time. Applying physical ideas to the human body to everyday phenomena.
We're trying to find universal laws.
Seems like it. Trying to unify different observations under consistent principles. His scientific rigor in some ways was unmatched for centuries. A big step away from purely mythic explanations towards empirical understanding.
Okay, and maybe the most startling scientific idea he had, especially for ancient Greece.
The evolution theory.
Well, yeah, something very much like it.
Yeah.
An early theory of evolution, or at least a major precursor.
And it's pretty mind-blowing.
He suggested that way back in an earlier cosmic phase, there were just countless tribes of mortal creatures scattered abroad, endowed with all manner of forms, a wonder to behold.
Bizarre forms, right?
Totally bizarre.
Yeah.
Headless bodies, arms wandering alone, creatures with mixed parts, men's heads on oxen's bodies, hermaphrodites, all just random combinations of elements.
Okay.
But here's the genius part. He said only the forms that were fitted to live together, the ones that could actually function and survive, those were the ones that lasted and reproduced.
And the others just died out.
Exactly. The malformed, the incompatible, they just perished. It sounds incredibly like a rough version of survival of the fittest.
Predating Darwin by millennia.
Literally.
It makes you ask, how on earth did he come up with that? Without modern biology, genetics, anything like that. It just speaks to this amazing observational skill combined with a really logical attempt to explain life's diversity. He wasn't just listing animals. He was trying to figure out the mechanism behind variation and survival.
It's genuinely startling. An anticipation of scientific thought way down the line.
Shows that ancient thinkers weren't just philosophers or mystics. Some were incredibly sharp observers of nature, looking for rational explanations.
He was hypothesizing these big mechanistic explanations for why things are the way they are.
And the idea of random combinations followed by selection. That's what makes it so eerily Darwinian. It's not about purpose or design from the start.
His scientific interests weren't just on Earth either. He looked up.
Astronomy, yeah.
Sources note his astronomical insights were impressive too. He knew the moon shines by reflected light.
Not its own light. A big deal back then.
And he correctly explained solar eclipses caused by the moon getting between the sun and Earth.
Which he learned from Anaxagoras.
Apparently so. Anaxagoras, another major thinker, who actually got exiled for saying the sun was a hot rock, not a god.
Shows how ideas were bouncing around, cross-pollination.
Yeah, and Empedocles was also connected to this Italian school of medicine associated with Anaxagoras. Their ideas influenced Plato and Aristotle later.
So he wasn't working in a vacuum.
Not at all. Part of a dynamic network, absorbing and synthesizing knowledge.
And that really highlights the intellectual ferment of the time, his rigor moving towards observation.
Plus his connection to medicine, probably using his element theory for health.
And the fact that Plato and Aristotle engaged with his ideas, it all shows his impact. He helped push thought from speculation towards a more grounded observational approach, a huge step.
Okay, so we've looked at Empedocles the scientist. What about Empedocles the philosopher? What are the big takeaways there?
Well, probably his most famous, most influential idea is the four elements.
Earth, air, fire, water.
Right. He established those as the fundamental roots of everything. He didn't use the word element quite like we do, but that was the concept.
And the key thing was these roots were eternal.
Eternal, uncreated, indestructible. They always existed. But, and this is crucial, they could mix together in different combinations, different proportions.
And that mixing is what makes everything we see.
Right. All the diversity of substances, creatures, phenomena, it's all just different mixes of these four basic roots, which is a really radical idea. Most earlier philosophers were looking for just one primary substance.
Like Thales thought it was water.
Right. Or Anaximenes said air, Heraclitus said fire, and Empedocles comes along and says, no, it's these four working together.
And that framework, it stuck around for a long time.
Oh, over 1,000 years. It became foundational for Western thought. It was this really elegant attempt to find simplicity and permanence within a world that's obviously always changing.
Building on those earlier guys, but making it more complex, more flexible.
Precisely. It could account for both stability, the roots themselves are stable, and change, their combinations change. It was a neat way to solve that big philosophical puzzle. How do you reconcile permanence and change? Especially after Parmenides said change isn't real.
Okay, so you have the four roots. But what makes them mix and unmix? They don't just do it on their own, do they?
Good question. No, he needed something to drive the process. And that's where his other major philosophical concept comes in. Love and strife.
Right, the two cosmic forces.
Exactly, two opposing forces. Love philia is the force that brings things together. It attracts, combines, unifies the elements into harmonious mixtures.
That is strife.
Strife, Nikos, does the opposite. It's the force of separation, division. It pushes the elements apart, breaks down the mixtures.
So these two are constantly battling it out.
Pretty much. They govern all the mixing and unmixing of the roots. They drive all the activity, all the transformation in the universe. It's like this grand cosmic tug of war. Attraction and repulsion, creation and destruction happening all the time.
That's quite a dynamic picture of the universe.
It really is. And
Yeah.
philosophically, it's brilliant. It provides an engine for change. It explains why things happen, why there's motion and transformation, instead of just a static reality.
So it deals with both Parmenides and Heraclitus again.
In a way, yes. It respects Parmenides because the roots themselves don't change, they're eternal. But it embraces Heraclitus because the combinations are always changing, always in flux, thanks to love and strife.
So the elements are permanent, but the world we see is constantly changing because of how they're mixed.
You got it. It was a major philosophical breakthrough, a powerful way to understand the world as we actually experience it, a world of constant motion and change without throwing out the logical need for some kind of underlying permanence. It gave a framework for how change happens.
And this battle between love and strife, it wasn't random. It followed a pattern.
Right. He saw it as a huge, never-ending cosmic cycle. The universe goes through these alternating periods.
Okay, like what?
Well, there are times when love is totally dominant. Everything comes together in perfect unity. All the elements are completely mixed into this divine sphere, a golden age, he called it.
The utopia.
Basically. Sources say during this phase, people worshipped Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Then, gradually, strife starts to gain the upper hand.
Pushing things apart.
Yeah. Pushing the elements apart until eventually you reach a state where strife is dominant and the elements are totally separated, distinct from each other.
And where are we in this cycle?
We're in one of the in-between periods, where both love and strife are active, constantly working against each other. That's why our world is so diverse, so dynamic, always changing, things coming together, things falling apart.
And this whole cycle just repeats forever.
That's the idea, and it's not random. It's governed by what he called necessity, Ananke. It's like a predetermined cosmic law driving this eternal dance.
That raises big questions about progress, doesn't it? Is things getting better or just going in circles?
Exactly. His view is definitely cyclical, not linear, a grand rhythm of creation and destruction. It gives a different perspective on beginnings and endings, not as one-off events, but as recurring phases in an eternal process.
A sense of order behind the chaos.
Mm-hmm. And this cyclical idea was pretty influential in ancient thought, maybe applying not just to the cosmos, but to history, society. Seeing patterns repeating.
It's also interesting how he was clearly building on other thinkers.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like Heraclitus's idea of constant change is there.
But Empedocles gives it a mechanism. Love and strife. That's the key addition.
And Plato apparently recognized that later. Saw the brilliance of using opposing forces to explain change.
Yes, Plato acknowledged Empedocles' solution to that problem. And most importantly, as we touched on, he was trying to bridge that gap between Parmenides' static universe and the changing world we see.
By having the roots be permanent, but their combinations change.
Precisely. He didn't just ignore Parmenides' logic, he incorporated it at the fundamental level while still accounting for macroscopic change. That ability to synthesize, adapt, resolve tensions, that shows a really sophisticated, original philosophical mind.
Okay, so we have the scientist, the philosopher. But then there's this other side that seems almost contradictory. Empedocles the mystic.
Right, the spiritual dimension, which was deeply influenced by traditions like Orphism and Pythagoreanism.
Which were big in southern Italy and Sicily where he lived.
Very big. And they focused heavily on ideas like the transmigration of souls, reincarnation, and purification. The soul needing to cleanse itself to escape the cycle.
Empedocles talked about demons.
Yeah, but not demons like we think of them now, more like divine sparks, portions of the soul that had somehow messed up, sinfully polluted themselves, as the texts say.
Polluted how?
We'll get into that, but the idea is they'd fallen from a state of bliss and were now trapped in the cycle of rebirth. It's a very spiritual concept, isn't it? Especially coming from someone doing science experiments.
Yeah.
It is. And it makes you wonder, how did he hold it all together? The science, the philosophy, and this deep spiritual belief. It suggests a worldview where these things weren't separate boxes. Right. Physical laws, philosophical understanding, the soul's journey, they were all intertwined. For him, understanding the cosmos wasn't just objective knowledge.
It was tied to your place in it and your ultimate destiny.
Exactly. The goal of all this understanding was ultimately a spiritual return to immortal bliss. It's a great example of that integrated ancient worldview where science, philosophy, religion all work together to explain existence and our purpose. He wasn't compartmentalizing like we often do.
And this journey for the fallen demons sounded pretty rough.
Oh, and incredibly arduous. They were condemned to wander for. The number varies, sometimes 30,000 years, sometimes 30,000 seasons.
Either way, a really, really long time.
An immense duration. And during this time, the demon is reborn through all forms of life. Plants, animals, eventually humans.
The cycle of suffering and rebirth.
Yeah. And he even described it as passing through the elements. Air to sea, sea to earth, earth back to the fiery heavens, sun, and then back to air to start again. A relentless, purifying ordeal.
And he thought he was on this journey.
He explicitly said so. He saw himself as one of these exiles and wanderers from the gods. It wasn't just theory for him, it was deeply personal conviction. He believed he was living this path, striving to get back. So the cycle isn't just punishment then. It's got a purpose.
Seems so. It's a path of learning, of purification. It shows this belief in cosmic justice, but also the possibility of redemption. Through knowledge and purity, you could eventually get free.
And the way he links it to the elements again, it just ties his whole system together. The spiritual journey happens within the physical cosmos he described. Every experience helps refine the soul. It's a huge cosmic narrative for individual salvation.
And he has specific practices linked to this, right? Things he did or didn't do.
Absolutely. Practical stuff. We hear about his sin, the thing that got his demon exiled in the first place. The sources say it was perhaps nothing that we should think very grievous.
But he took it seriously.
Very seriously. He lamented it deeply. There's that quote, "Ah, woe is me that the pitiless day of death did not destroy me, ere ever I wrought evil deeds of devouring with my lips."
Devouring with my lips. Sounds like eating something he shouldn't have.
Strongly implies it. Which ties into his probable vegetarianism. We know he avoided certain things, like laurel leaves and beans, common Pythagorean Orphic taboos.
Why beans?
That's a whole other mystery. But it was part of the tradition. And this abstinence contrasts with how he described the Golden Age, where he said the altar did not reek with pure blood sacrifice. He was advocating a move away from animal sacrifice.
So his spiritual beliefs directly shaped his diet, his lifestyle.
Exactly. It wasn't just abstract thought, it was a lived practice, integrating philosophy and religion into daily life, aiming for purification, a higher state.
The vegetarianism, the abstinences, they were spiritual disciplines.
Precisely. Ways to purify the soul, break the cycle. It shows how his whole science, philosophy, mysticism was aimed at this single holistic truth and way of life.
And what was the ultimate goal of all this after the 30,000 years or seasons?
The ultimate prize? Achieving immortal bliss. Returning to the company of the gods where the demons came from.
So humans could become gods.
That's what he believed. Through this process of purification, living ascetically, gaining deep understanding, mortal humans could transcend their limits, become revered figures, prophets, healers, leaders.
Eventually gods themselves.
Yes. rising up as gods, free from human woes, incapable of hurt. It's an incredibly ambitious, intensely personal quest. To overcome mortality itself, wow, that really does tie everything together, transcending limitations through knowledge and purity.
Understanding the cosmos scientifically, philosophically, and spiritually, that was the path to freedom, wisdom, divinity.
It wasn't just about life after death, it was about elevating your being now and ultimately rejoining the divine source. It gives a powerful motivation for self-improvement, for seeking knowledge, a clear path to liberation.
Okay. So we've gone through the science, the philosophy, the mysticism. How do we put Humpty Dumpty back together again? How do we make sense of this figure who is all these things at once?
Aha, yep, the big question. The brilliant scientist proving air exists and the guy claiming to be a god.
The democratic politician involved in messy city politics, and the mystic avoiding beings and believing in reincarnation. He's a living paradox.
He is, and you have to ask, were these just separate personalities? Or was it all part of one cohesive worldview for him?
What do the sources suggest?
They strongly lean towards a unified system, even if it looks contradictory to us now. The common interpretation is that he saw a kind of hierarchy.
The hierarchy.
Yeah. Science was maybe the foundation understanding the physical world. That led to the philosophy, the elements, love, strife, the cycle. And from that philosophy came the spiritual beliefs, the demon's journey, the path to purification within that cosmos.
So science supports philosophy, which supports religion.
Something like that, using empirical findings as a base for broader philosophical and spiritual claims. And it was this unique blend, his originality, especially the four roots and love strife, that made his system so powerful and influential. He wasn't just dabbling, he was building a comprehensive explanation for everything.
And his influence definitely lasted, didn't it?
Yeah.
Despite the contradictions, the weird persona.
Absolutely. Sources even argue his philosophy was in some ways more scientific than Plato or Aristotle because of his focus on observation and experiment, like the air demo,
Right.
and about his superstitions. The texts make that pointed comment that they were maybe less worse than many more recent men of science.
A dig at later scientists.
Seems like it. A reminder not to judge ancient figures by our modern strict divisions between science and belief. Those lines were just blurrier back then.
So looking back, how should we see him?
I think he stands as this towering figure who attempted a truly grand synthesis of knowledge right when those fields were still forming. His impact on later Greek thought is undeniable. He pushed the boundaries everywhere, from tiny particles to cosmic cycles to the soul's journey.
Oh, pioneer.
Definitely. Showing one mind could try to integrate such a vast range of understanding. He represents this crucial, formative moment in Western thought, moving towards more systematic, empirical, comprehensive ways of knowing.
So whether you call him a proto-scientist, a philosopher, a prophet, a charlatan, maybe all of the above.
Maybe. But above all, he was just intensely, boundlessly curious, trying to understand everything, the smallest bits of reality, the biggest cosmic patterns, and our place in it all.
He was a master of the deep dive, way back when.
He really was.
So we've unpacked these incredible layers of Empedocles. The scientist discovering air's reality, the philosopher mapping that cosmic dance of love and strife, the mystic charting a path to purification and godhood.
A truly singular vision, wasn't it? Showing how interconnected these fields could be.
His story really makes you think, doesn't it? About the boundaries we draw now between science, philosophy, religion.
Absolutely. For him, they weren't separate tracks. They were all part of one big quest for understanding reality. A holistic path to a richer, more enlightened life. Different lenses, maybe, but all looking at the same deep truths.
So maybe the next time you hear about a new scientific discovery or a big philosophical idea, or even think about a personal spiritual path.
Pause and think of Empedocles.
Yeah. What if these aren't separate things? What if, for some people, maybe even for us, they're all interwoven threads in one continuous search for truth and wisdom?
It's a provocative thought. What stands out most to you, listening now, about Empedocles? Does that mix of charlatan and sage make you question your own ideas about knowledge?
Maybe his integrated approach, trying to bring everything together. Maybe that offers a challenge to our super specialized world today.
Perhaps. It definitely reminds us that sometimes the biggest insights come from those who dare to cross all the boundaries.